thing I've been realising more and more lately is the power of storytelling. But why is it so important to filmmaking? Hello, my name is Cade and this is DSLRguide. So here on YouTube it seems that there are plenty of videos about filmmaking techniques and filmmaking equipment, and I've made my fair share of those, and that's fine. But since everyone seems to agree that storytelling is the most important part of filmmaking, I thought I would make some videos about story. So why should we put so much effort into storytelling? Well, for some reason, since well before humans could read or write, we've always enjoyed stories. And in terms of filmmaking, story gives the characters purpose. Without story, your film is just a series of shots, and the audience will be a lot less likely to care about the characters or wonder how it ends. So you might have shot your film with the best equipment and made sure that the technical side was perfect, but the story is the engine of your film. It's a bit like having a car with the slickest paint job and perfect interiors and really nice rims, but if there's a problem with the engine, then you're never going to be able to take your audience on a journey. Now, storytelling doesn't have to be this wishy-washy, you've either got it or you haven't, mystical, creative entity. By investing your time in storytelling, you've pretty much got a surefire way to improve your film. But what does that actually entail? So a few years ago I shot an interview and I'd just got a new telephoto lens, so I wanted to use that lens, but because it was such a small room, I was zoomed out all the way and stuck with a close-up. Now let's pretend that this was a short film. If I'd stuck with that close-up in a short film, then what I'm telling the audience is this is very important. If I'd spent a little more time thinking about story, I would have switched to my old lens and shot it a lot wider so that I could save my close-ups for times when it was a really pivotal moment for that character. And as a general rule, I would say that if you can find one reason to justify your decisions based on the story, then you should always go with that. So whether it's the obvious things like acting, camera work and editing, or some of the perhaps more subtle ones like lighting and costume and location, when making those decisions, always go back to the particular message that your scene or film is trying to convey. But to be honest, I think the easiest and more practical way to improve your story is to just prioritize your budget for what's best for the story. So this means rather than buying new cameras or more lenses, why not hire actors, hire writers or locations? And this even works on a really small budget. If you could pay an aspiring actor just the money that you saved from not buying a lens, then that might actually work out a lot better for your film than if you just kind of got some of your friends and family to volunteer as actors. And this is just one example, but I think by putting the budget directly into the story, this is a really, really good way to improve your film. Now, the next reason is that films without story or plot are usually boring. Now, if any of you have seen any of my videos on youtube.com/cadevisuals, link in the description, then you'll know that I've made plenty of films that don't really have any story. So each time I'd say to myself, now this one is going to have a story. And I think that my most recent project, the music video, probably has got more of a story than any of my other work. But for far too long I didn't even think about whether my films had a story, any meat for an audience to sink their teeth into. But now I'm learning to not be content with a film that may well have great visuals, but when you kind of boil it down, nothing really happens. So what can you do if you want to prioritize story in your films? Well, I think the first thing to do is to keep it simple. Learn how to tell a simple story. Just pick a general message, maybe a film about self-sacrifice, or a film about the futility of war, or the struggle of someone who prioritizes making money over their family. And don't spend too long making it, just keep it very short, and then just, go from there. Learn to tell a basic story so that you can move on to the more complex stuff later on. So if you're not sure what makes a good story, then a kind of general, tried and tested checklist would be this. Does your film have conflict? Does the plot come from the characters' decisions, or do they just let things happen to them? Audiences usually prefer active characters to passive ones. Are you surprising the audience? No one likes a predictable film. Now, the other thing you can do is watch movies and notice the conflict, notice the plot and the overall message of the film. And then also look out for times when the camera work, the editing, and all the other filmmaking tools reflect the tone of the scene or the message of particular characters. And I'd also recommend that you check out the YouTube channel Every Frame a Painting, which is a series of video essays about film that have taught me so much about visual storytelling in particular. And also there's the channel D4Darius. He's got tons of great videos about storytelling. The guy seriously knows his stuff. And finally, I'd recommend Vincent Laforet's Directing Motion Tour, which I'll link to on the blog post, and this focuses mostly on using camera movement and movement within the frame to tell stories. But there's also plenty of really good principles about filmmaking and storytelling in general. Now that's pretty much it for this week. On the blog post, as I said, there'll be loads of videos embedded that have taught me tons and tons about storytelling, so I highly recommend you check that out. And if you want to see any of my future work that to do with storytelling and stuff, then youtube.com/cadevisuals is the place where all that stuff ends up. The music video and some other stuff is on there that I've done before. But yeah, so that's it for this week. I'll see you next time.